Performance advertisers who optimize for purchases. History shows your costs are going to be going up in the month of October. In this episode of the Paid Traffic Forecast, we'll go through exactly what the forecast shows, the hot spots and cold spots you need to pay attention to, what the projection models say your results could look like based off what you focus on, and the 3 plays you can focus on to maximize your results in October and prepare for what's around the corner in November and December. More on that right after this. Hey there, and welcome to the October 2025 Paid Traffic Forecast for Purchase Advertisers. I'm John Belcher, the founder here at Decyphered. That's Ross Pietersen, the head of media buying. And we're excited to show you what's around the corner for your campaigns in the month of October. To really quickly explain what we do here at Decyphered, we help our clients understand and win at the scaling game. Paid traffic is a game. It's a never-ending game of figuring out how to unlock your next level of scale. Winning is about having a game plan, getting clarity on which level you're on so you can focus on taking the right actions to help you level up. That's what we help our clients do. But a big part of succeeding at this game and making scale be sustainable and predictable is understanding your cost environment. It has a huge impact on results, and that's exactly why we created this forecast. So I want to explain really quickly what you're going to get over the next 30 minutes. We're going to go through the October outlook, what the last 5 years tells us is likely in store for you as a purchase advertiser. Ross is going to go through the hot spots and the cold spots, the specific dates you need to pay attention, and the actions you may need to take and the mistakes you want to avoid. I'm going to go through the projection models. We're going to talk about what your numbers could look like depending on what you focus on. And then finally, I'm going to go through the cost environment playbook, 3 actions you can take to maximize your results this month and prepare for the future. All right, so from the October outlook, I want to quickly explain how I created this forecast. Once again, my job is to generate predictions, projections for our clients. And I wanted to have a model that worked, that factored this in because I saw this was such a big piece, is like changing cost environments. So I went and looked at 5-year historicals on Meta, analyzed hundreds of millions of dollars of spend for the 4 major conversion types. And then I developed a projection model and we tested it against our actuals. And we found we could project within about 5% of actual results for clients spending over $1 million a month in spend. Now, what's important for you to understand is that Meta is our data source, but we've found that these percentages apply across platforms. So if we see an increase on Meta, we also see it on Google, on native, and it's really starting to apply so much more to AppLovin as more advertisers are coming on. So this is kind of just the way that paid traffic works. The last thing for you to understand is this is a forecast, not a prophecy. So the reason we created this is to give us a good understanding of what's coming up, but obviously things change year to year. So our goal is to give you an understanding of what's around the corner, the dates you need to pay attention to, and the actions you do or do not want to take, but obviously things can change. So let's talk about on the overall what you can expect in the month of October. As you can see here, in October for purchase advertisers, CPMs relative to the rest of the year are still pretty green. We're still in a pretty good spot before we get into Q4. Your CPMs are going to be going up between the beginning of the month and the end of the month, 9.3%. So we will talk about what that impact means. But I think what's really important is I know you as a performance advertiser do not care about CPMs. You care about CPAs and ROAS, and I'm totally with you there. But what we have found is there's a directly linear correlation between CPM changes and our CPAs and our ROAS. And this is why it's so important for you to know and understand. So that's my quick spiel. Ross, why don't we have you take it away with the hot spots and cold spots?
Perfect. So let's just quickly go through what a hot spot and a cold spot is. And really what that is a dramatic change in cost in a short period of time. If it's an increase, that's a hot spot. If it's a decrease, that is a cold spot. We only have one date highlighted for the month of October, and that is the 31st of October, which is a cold spot. And essentially, the rest of the month looks pretty stable. We just have a consistently increasing CPM throughout the month. And on the 31st, around Halloween, basically after that, we're forecasting a cold spot. That means there's going to be a drastic decrease in cost environment, and we're going to be expecting some changes around then. Let's go and have a quick look at what a cold spot would look like. And basically, the first indicator is you're going to start seeing some overspend. So if you have a budget of $100 a day on a campaign or an ad set, essentially you're going to see $120, $130, $140 of spend. That's what it would feel like. And then this starts to cause some instability in terms of delivery, pushing out more spend, more than you budgeted for. I think before we go into anything else, let's have a quick look at a real life example. So here at Decyphered, um, with the media buying team, we're measuring our budgets on a daily basis and how much of that budget is actually getting used. And this is a good indicator for us as to what's going on. So you'll see here's a graph or a spreadsheet of a whole bunch of ad set budgets, and then you'll see a cost. And what you'll see here is a lot of the orange and the yellow are overspend. So we would set a budget at, say, $320 and significantly more gets spent. Now, that sounds crazy, but this is by design. This is how these ad networks work. They have these guardrails and spend rules in place when you look at the T's and C's. But what's happening now is cost environment's changing, and all of a sudden there's this overspend. Now, let's go into the quick risks and mistakes we should try and avoid. Essentially, in this cold spot, there's this real dump of budget because there are some now more impressions available, less competition, dropping cost. And what we're trying to do is not have a long recovery period. We don't want to extend it, and we don't want to ruin our account stability and our ability to produce purchases. Now, the other thing to consider is there's two types of advertisers we talk about. Those who are uncontrolled, where we're maximizing conversions, and those who are more cost controlled or controlled advertisers using target CPA, target ROAS, where you've got a cost control in place. If you're in the uncontrolled advertising space, number one mistake is not monitoring that budget utilization. Always got to be keeping an eye on that. That's your early indicator. The next thing is big budget changes during this change of cost environment as you're coming down the hill. This is a big mistake because essentially there is going to be overspend. Whether you drop your budget or lower it or raise it, there's going to be some overspend. And the other thing is scaling before performance stabilizes. These are big, big mistakes that we've made ourselves. So we know, we're speaking from experience, that this is really going to extend your recovery period, create massive instability. Now, if you have those cost controls in place, big thing to avoid is to not change your bids during this kind of transition where you're having this overspend. You're now adding more fuel to a fire, more chaos into this instability that's actually happening in your environment. And the last big mistake is rebuilding those campaigns and trying to scale them up too quickly with the idea that, you know, if you were at $10,000 a day, you started right back up there, or you ratcheted up $2,000 a day. That campaign is brand new. It needs some time to learn, and you need to gradually scale it up to where it was.
So only thing I want to add on top of this, once again, we're calling these mistakes because these are mistakes that we've made in these particular environments. Ross is looking at that actual spend, and then these are the adjustments we've made. These are the mistakes that we have personally made. So Ross, basically what happens when we start to see overspend, you kind of take your hands off the wheel, right? And you let it play out for a day or two. We just let clients know ahead of time, hey, we're about to head into a cold spot. We're probably going to see some overspend. Performance is not going to be exactly what we want, but we don't want to touch a bunch of things because in a day or two, this will shake out. So it's just important for you to know these things are coming up. On top of this, the thing I want to make sure is really clear. The reason that you see this overspend is because when CPMs are increasing, your campaigns start to get choked out a bit. So you'll actually see them underspend a bit. And so if you have a budget of 100 and you're spending 80, well, Facebook and Google talk about their goal is to spend what you've set in a 7-day window. So if they spend 80 for 5 days, that's only $400. They're going to spend 300 in the next 2 days, right? And so you're going to be spending 150 during those 2 days. That's why these things take place. And so once again, you need to be paying attention to your actual amounts of spend relative to your budget. And then when you start to see them overspend, don't make a bunch of changes. Let it play out. It'll come back and stabilize a couple days later. Ross, thanks for walking us through that. Let's talk through the seasonal stuff now.
So the other thing that we look at when we're planning our next month is, what does our monthly calendar look like in terms of the overall 12-month? We have a retail calendar that we work through. And essentially, these are events that we're looking that are outside of just the purchase events. Are there anything that is a macro event that might impact a purchase advertiser outside of your vertical? You know, maybe you're in retail or whatever, you're selling online through your e-commerce store. So an example of that is, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. This is a big event. Many people participate. This affects the CPM and cost environment. These are big brand buys, elections, those kinds of things where big advertisers are dumping huge budgets, buying on CPM, which is much cheaper, taking up all those impressions, reducing the amount of impressions that us performance advertisers can get, therefore driving that price up. So 2, we've indicated for the month of October is our regular end of month retail cycle where there's a huge demand. That's around the 25th to the 31st. And the other one is the 31st, which is a key one, which is Halloween, where you're going to see chances are some fluctuations, some volatility, and that's obviously the start of our cold spot heading into early November.
And so the only thing to add here is, once again, these affect all advertisers. And the reason that we're highlighting this cold spot is because the CPMs are increasing during this period for normal performance at purchase advertisers, but you're going to get choked out on impressions here. And this is what's likely going to cause that underspend that causes the issues with that cold spot overspend. So once again, dynamic, this is like predictable. It happens every month at the end of every quarter. And so it's just really important that you're understanding these are the things that take place. Sweet. Ross, thanks so much for walking us through that. All right. Now it's my turn to talk about projection models. I'm the numbers guy. So I want to explain really quickly what I'm looking at when I build projections. The thing I want to view is the CPM impact on results. So what does the cost environment mean for the overall P&L? 2 variables I consider every month is the number of selling days as well as conversion rate changes. So selling days are important. I've highlighted it here because September was 30 days and October is 31 days. You have to make sure that when you're setting, companies are setting goals, factoring the number of selling days is super important, right? If you're spending $30,000 a day, you're going to get an extra $30,000 this month than you had last month. So your goals should be adjusted. In addition, conversion rate changes on a monthly basis are super important to factor in when we're talking about funnel performance. And I'll demonstrate this here in a little bit, but those are the 2 variables you need to be considering when you're developing your projections. And the result that I want is an evergreen production estimate. What can we expect our evergreen proven base of campaigns to produce? So if in September they produce this, what are these same campaigns going to be producing this month? And that will help us determine, do we have a surplus? Do we have pretty steady state, or do we have deltas that we have to make up? And that's going to determine the monthly focuses that we have. What actions are we need to focus on and how risky should they be? So once again, higher CPMs, if we spend $100,000 in September, if we spend that same $100,000 in October, it means we're going to reach 9.3% fewer people. Now, once again, I know you don't really care about impressions, but you should. And here's why. When we talk about fewer people for the same amount of spend, we're reaching 3.3% fewer people, and your sales process is a funnel, right? So if you put fewer impressions, your CTRs are probably going to stay about the same, which means you're going to have fewer clicks, and your page load rate's probably going to stay about the same, which means you're going to have fewer landing page views. Your add to cart rate should hopefully stay about the same. It's going to be fewer add to carts. And then once again, unless you have something, the seasonal, that's impacting the purchase rate, you're going to have fewer purchases, which means for the same spend, you're going to experience worse ROI. This is what ties these CPM trends to the changes in your CPAs and ROAS. So what I do is I build out spreadsheets that are way more complex than this, but I look at what we did in September. If we spent $100,000, did 1,000 conversions at $100 a pop, $150 in revenue, it gives us $150,000 in revenue from these campaigns at a 1.5 ROAS. And then we develop 3 models. If we maintain the same amount of spend, how many conversions are we going to experience? Well, since CPMs are going up 9.3%, we're going to see that reflected in our CPAs, which is going to drop our revenue $13,000 and our ROAS by 0.13. If we want to maintain the same amount of conversions, we're going to have to, what I call pee into the wind. We're going to have to push higher into higher CPMs. So we're actually going to spend $120,000 to generate that same 1,000 sales. Our CPAs go up $20, which means our ROAS is dropping 1 to 1.26, right? So it's really important to note you can generate the same volume, but your return is going to go down. And then finally, if you want to maintain cost, the same $100 per sale, you have to pull back based off what's happening in the cost environment. And this is a best case scenario. To hit these same cost targets, you're only going to be able to spend probably a max of $84,000. And the reason I say that, we treat this like stock trading, where if we're trying to maintain a certain cost, if that cost is at or above market pricing, we're going to be able to maintain our spend. But as we start to pull back, we're going to basically get fewer people to accept our bids because we're under market price. And that's essentially what's happening when you reduce your ad spend. You're getting removed from auctions. And so best case scenario, we'd spend about $84,000. We generate about $125,000 in revenue at our ROAS target, but we're producing $25,000 less revenue. And so that's just really important for you to understand. There's going to be a delta this month. And so when we talk about the overall conclusion, higher costs are going to lead to lower results. And so our actions, we need to take actions to make up the delta. And in addition, we need to be prepping for what's around the corner. So October looks pretty good, but November and December gets way worse for purchase advertisers. So the actions we want to take this month is, what are the things we can do to make up our current deltas, and how do we prepare for the next couple of months? And so that's what we'll talk about here in our cost environment playbook. My goal every month is to give you 3 actions you can take that fit the cost environment. So we want to take high cost environment actions, meaning we want to take low risk actions. We want to do things that can improve our revenue and our profit without necessarily taking a ton of risk. So I try and give you 3 plays: a high lift play that's going to require a lot of work, a medium lift, which is medium, and then low lift, which is pretty low effort, to help us combat these things. So we're going to talk about strategic PR efforts, supporting proven partners and affiliates, and then deploying proven angle iterations. And so I always try and do this through an example brand. This month, we found this on GiddyUp. It's a product called Talkie AI Buds. They're basically headphones that translate up 144 languages instantly. This is a pretty cool product, and I thought it would be kind of cool to do it through the lens of this. So when we talk about strategic PR efforts, as a performance advertiser, I've worked with a bunch of companies that have hired PR agencies and said it's horrible ROI. I love talking. There's a speech that the founder of Y Combinator, he's like, PR agencies are a waste of money. And I've found that to be true. But PR can be an awesome performance channel if you know how to do it right and you're doing strategic outreach on your own. And what you have to do is you have to basically come up with the headline for a reporter. What's the headline that they should be talking about? And then explaining the value prop of your product. So in this particular one, I was like, hey, traveling to foreign countries is now easier and safer thanks to these AI headphones, and explaining the value prop. This AI headset has completely removed the language barrier, which makes it travel feels easier because you're not having to deal with the language barrier, but you also feel safer because when you have them on, you understand what people are saying around you and if you're in a potentially threatening situation. And so the goal of this is go through, I made up the data point of we surveyed 1,285 customers, but these are the types of things, if you can mine specific testimonials, use cases, studies from your customer base that you can bring to a reporter, these are the types of things that they want to have because they have to meet their quota for stories. And so what I would do in this particular scenario is I would build a list of people that focus on reporting about travel. And I would send a subject line of like AI translator making travel easier and safer. And I always like to do things with a question mark so people open it, right? Hey, reporter, I've seen you focus on putting together travel news for your audience, and I wanted to see if you'd be interested in doing an exclusive feature on our product. So reporters want to do exclusives. They don't want to have you do this with 10 other sites. Say, we're looking at doing an exclusive. We've surveyed 1,285 of our customers, and they told us that our headphones not only make the travel process easier, but also made them feel safer. Let me know if you want more details. And the goal of this is to set up a deal where they're putting out this news article. There's a link to you. And some of these sites now want to do affiliate deals. Well, cool. We'll do an affiliate commission, what have you. But this is something that can get you a bump of sales in a period where it's more expensive. And now you have a playbook, you have a relationship that you can go back to this reporter, or you have a template that you can follow to get more sales in these higher cost times. So this is something that's really effective once you start to develop this playbook of getting your product or products featured on a regular basis. These are the types of relationships that make a ton of sense to work through. Second play for you is supporting proven partners and affiliates. So 2 things that we typically do with affiliate programs. Number 1 is when you're in a higher cost period, hand off your top performing angles to your best partners. So say, hey, we've done a bunch of angle testing. What I really like is, if you're working with someone who's just kind of a borderline affiliate, they're just going to take your ads and they're going to run them. That's not really what you're looking for. You want to identify the affiliates, the influencers that make their own content. And you're just saying, here's an angle that works, put it through your process. And that's when you start to see results double up. So I love working with people. We don't do a ton of UGC content. Whenever we can work with an influencer or an affiliate that does UGC, here's the angles that work for us, put them through your process, and you start to see more results come through that path. The other thing you can do is seasonal payout bumps. I put careful here because you have to be careful with the way you do this. But what's important is I view affiliates as cost averaging for companies. They typically get paid out less than what you're willing to pay for a customer. And so if you're going to experience, in this particular case, we're talking about 9%. So the payout bump would, in theory, be less than that. But tell them you want to test to see if the numbers still work if you increase their payout by X%. But you have to preface this as a test. If you just say we're going to give you a payout bump, they expect that to be permanent. Your goal is to see, like, can we leverage this in Q4 and then get them back to where we want to be in Q1 when their costs come down. So I mocked up an example email. Awesome partner, Q4 test. Hey, partner, reaching out for 2 reasons. These new angles are crushing. See the attached. And then we're open to doing a test with a payout bump for Q4 to see if the numbers back out. Once again, I can't promise you they'll stay here, but let me know if this is something that's interesting so you can get rolling. This is extremely valuable for anyone that sells e-com stuff in Q4 because a lot of affiliates move to listicles. And so if you can have, here's an awesome angle, and we're going to give you a payout bump, you typically will get moved up in their listicle. And listicles are like the ultimate Pareto principle. You're going to get the top couple listings, get the vast majority of the volume. Your goal is to get as high up as you possibly can in their listicle. And here's a couple ways you can go through and do that. Final play for you is in these higher cost periods, deploying proven angle iterations. So what Ross and I focus on in higher cost periods, we're always wanting to put more creatives into the platform because platforms want to serve new ads. They just get better delivery because it's a new piece of content. If we can focus during higher cost times on deploying stuff that we already know works, we have less waste. So new angles, we don't even know if it's going to work. If we put it in a higher cost time, our failure rate is a lot higher. But if it's an iteration on a proven ad, we know it's more likely to succeed. So they're getting the new content they want, and we're maximizing our chances of success. What we've done is put together an N8N workflow to produce these at scale. I'll share it with you here in just a second. But ultimately, the goal is ingesting your top performing ad scripts. The agent writes new scripts and sends them over to get voiceovers from 11 Labs. And we're able to send it over to our editor just to produce them and launch. This is important because we can get a lot more videos out, and it requires 0 time from our creative strategy team, which that allows them to go focus on new angles, doing these other components that are important for our clients. So it's a really big opportunity. Here's an example of what this workflow looks like. I just do this manually whenever we need them. We run everything through BigQuery. So I have this set up where it's going to query X number of ads that are hitting certain targets above certain thresholds. So it'll generate a list. Here's 4 angles that are performing. It'll download these Google Drive files that are videos. We send them to ChatGPT. It transcribes them. And then these get sent over to the agent who goes through and has a specific prompt to develop iterations. So it's like, use this as your frame of reference, but we want these to be different messages that leverage the same angle. It'll write the scripts and then it sends them over to 11 Labs. We've preset the voice, so we just get back the voiceovers we're looking for. And that's easy to send over to our editor, take those and go through and get those produced. It really just removes the need for a person to be involved here. And so we can do this as many times as we need. Obviously, it's better to do this earlier in the year when you have more angles performing. So I would highly recommend doing something like this in October. You may launch them as you're experiencing higher costs, but you know your costs are going to skyrocket in the next 2 months. So if you don't need them right now, stockpile them. And to show you the difference this makes, we have 4 angles here. Angle 20 is our parent angle. This is a long-standing high performer, $2.5 million in spend year to date, $5 million lifetime. It started to kind of burn out in August. And so luckily, we'd already started this process. We saw our performance drop, so we started these iterations, and we've seen them ramp up 17% of the volume in this time period, and it's continued to ramp up while this has ramped down. So we're able to replace spend. These new angles are producing well. Ross, I'm pretty sure we're at a couple $1,000s a day on these angles now. It's made a really big difference. So I think what's important is you can see we were a little hesitant. Do these AI iterations perform? They have. And we've started to build a backlog. Ross, can you talk about the importance of that backlog in these higher cost periods?
Yeah, exactly that, John. So it's been really helpful from the perspective of I know there's a stockpile. So when we're seeing big fluctuations, things that maybe aren't, anticipated or forecast, it's really easy to pull back on our stockpile because they're already queued up and they're built off of things that we know have worked. And again, to reiterate your point, we were really hesitant as a team. You pushed us to kind of try and integrate this and test this, and it's proven, really fruitful. Some of these angles are spending $2,000-$3,000 a day individually, and that's quite substantial for something that was really, really low lift. Creative team didn't have to touch it. It's just a real video editor's job just to finish it off. And these aren't just color changes; they're like a completely different video, but using the same message angle. So they've really been really great to have in the back pocket.
Awesome. So those are the 3 plays I have for you this month. Strategic PR efforts to get you featured in publications, supporting your proven partners and affiliates, and deploying proven angle iterations are something you can do to combat these high cost environment times with low risk actions. We hope this has been effective for you. We wish you the best in the month of October, and we look forward to talking to you again next month. Thanks for watching this month's paid traffic forecast. Just by watching it, you and your team now know what to expect from your overall performance and the hot spots and cold spots you need to pay attention to over the next 30 days. If you want to be this prepared every month, there's 2 things you can do. First, you can subscribe or follow our social channels so this information shows up in your feed at the beginning of every month. Second, if you want the information early, you can subscribe to our free list where you'll get the information delivered to your inbox a day ahead of time. If there's something you think we can do to improve our monthly update, just drop us a comment below and let us know what you think that is. And finally, if you're a business owner looking for someone who can help you develop an advertising ecosystem that produces more sustainable, predictable scale, make sure to head over to decyphered.com/start. On that page, you'll understand how our process works and the steps you can take to see if we might be a good fit to help you. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next month.